I used to believe that hard work was its own reward, that if you kept your head down, did your job better than anyone else, and delivered results, you'd be untouchable. My name is Harper Lane. I'm 25 years old, and until a few months ago, I was the director of product strategy at Lantern Tech, one of the youngest directors in the company's history. My team? We were the backbone of the company's revenue engine. No exaggeration. We were bringing in 40% of the entire company's income, and I loved it. The pressure, the long hours, the thrill of innovation, it was intoxicating. My team joked that I had Red Bull in my veins and spreadsheets for dreams. But it wasn't a joke to me. I lived for that job. When news broke that our CEO was stepping down, I wasn't nervous. If anything, I was excited. A new leader could mean fresh vision, new opportunities. Her name was Cassandra Rhodes. She came from a finance background, known for corporate turnarounds. Some called her a corporate surgeon, precise, clinical, unapologetic. But I figured numbers don't lie, and my numbers were gold. The first time I saw her was at the quarterly leadership summit. She walked into the boardroom with this commanding energy, tailored navy pantsuit, not a single strand of her silver-streaked hair out of place. She didn't smile. She surveyed the room like she already knew who she would cut. When it was my turn to present, I was ready. I had polished slides, solid projections, and recent success metrics. I laid it all out. Our Q3 initiatives had outperformed expectations by 26%. We'd landed 3 major enterprise clients, and customer retention was at an all-time high. She didn't ask a single question, just scribbled in her moleskine and nodded once. That was the first red flag. 2 weeks later, I got the calendar invite. Check in with CEO, 15 minutes. No subject line, no details. Her assistant ushered me in. Cassandra's office was minimalist, glass walls, no personal photos, just a single sculpture on the bookshelf and a massive monitor on her desk. "Harper," she greeted, not unkindly, just neutral. "Thanks for coming. I'll be brief." My stomach turned. "I've reviewed your division's performance," she continued. "Impressive, but I'm restructuring the executive tier. We're streamlining strategy leadership to align with global goals. Your role will be impacted." I blinked. Impacted how? "You'll no longer be director of product strategy. We're bringing in external talent for the role, someone with global launch experience." I tried to keep my voice steady, but we just delivered a 40% revenue boost. My team has exceeded every target. "I'm aware," she said, almost bored, "which is why I'd like to offer you a 6-month consulting role. Your insight will be valuable during the transition." That word again. Transition. Like I was just some old software being deprecated. I sat there frozen for a beat, then stood slowly. "I see. Talk to HR," she said, already looking at her screen. "They'll walk you through your options." The meeting lasted 6 minutes. By Friday, I was moved out of my office. The plaque with my name was gone. No farewell party. Not even a team lunch. Just an HR rep handing me an envelope and avoiding my gaze. It felt like a death I wasn't allowed to mourn. That night, I went home and sat in the dark, still in my office clothes, the silence louder than I thought possible. I kept going over the moment again and again. What had I done wrong? Had I been too confident? Too ambitious? Had I underestimated her? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't about me failing. It was about me not fitting her mold. And I knew that there was more to this story. You don't get your most profitable team without a reason. She didn't just sideline me. She was clearing space. But for what? I wasn't sure yet. But I would find out. And she'd wish she hadn't underestimated me. I took the consulting contract. It wasn't pride, it was strategy. From the outside, it looked like I was playing nice, quietly exiting the stage. But inside, I was watching everything, listening, connecting dots. My desk was relocated to a smaller office on the 3rd floor, far from the executive wing. No windows, no title plate, just 4 blank walls and a monitor that still had my login credentials. That part surprised me. Most people, once removed from power, get locked out immediately. But not me. Not yet. They underestimated how much access I still had. I spent the first week quietly digging. My replacement hadn't arrived yet. Some big shot from overseas who Cassandra claimed had global scalability experience. His name was Damian Greaves. I'd heard of him. Polished, connected, ruthless, and rumored to have a close history with Cassandra. That's when things started to make sense. I cross-referenced Damian's old firm, Zephyr Tech, with Cassandra's last few consulting gigs. They overlapped more than once. She had served on their advisory board for a short stint. A conflict of interest? Possibly, but hard to prove. Meanwhile, I kept my head down. I was polite in meetings, quiet during strategy reviews, and always one step behind in group discussions. Just enough to make people forget I used to be in charge. But behind the scenes, I was running data pulls on product forecasts, client engagement logs, and internal Slack exports. I wasn't trying to sabotage. I just wanted the truth. And that's when I found it. There was a new pilot project being funneled through an offshore account labeled Phase 7. Odd, because we didn't have a Phase 7. The budget code didn't match anything from our approved roadmap. It was funded through discretionary R&D reserves, something only Cassandra and the CFO could authorize. Curious, I followed the paper trail. Phase 7 was a direct clone of a project I'd pitched last year. A project they'd shelved after saying it was too ambitious. Same design structure, same customer segment, but now it was being launched under Damian's division. I felt sick. They hadn't just removed me. They'd stolen my work, branded it with his name, and were preparing to pitch it to investors like it was his genius idea. I stared at the documents on my screen, my heart pounding. A time-stamped archive proved it was mine, drafted, saved, and shared with the executive team almost 11 months ago. The betrayal burned, but it also gave me clarity. This wasn't about performance. It was about power, legacy, and loyalty. Cassandra was building a new empire, and she wanted soldiers, not founders. People she could mold. People she could control. I wasn't one of them. The next morning, I printed the documents. All of them. My original proposal. The new Phase 7 outline. The budget transfers. I even included screenshots of the Slack conversations where I first discussed the prototype with my team. I slid the manila folder into my tote bag, walked into the office like it was any other day, and made my way to someone who, up until that point, had been a ghost in the room. Nathan Rivas, Senior VP of Compliance. He wasn't flashy, always quiet, kept to himself, but he was thorough, and if there was anyone who could make Cassandra sweat, it was Nathan. I knocked on his door. He looked up, surprised. "Harper." "I need 5 minutes," I said, "and a reason not to go to the press." Nathan didn't speak right away. He motioned for me to close the door, then gestured toward the seat across from him. His office was as understated as the man himself. Books neatly shelved, 2 degrees framed side by side, blinds half drawn. Everything about him said, meticulous. I needed that now more than ever. I placed the manila folder on his desk. "I need you to see what's happening," I said, keeping my voice even. "This is bigger than office politics. It's fraud, and it's calculated." He studied me for a moment before opening the folder. As he flipped through the pages, his brow furrowed. He paused at the budget transfer logs, then the side-by-side comparison of my original prototype and the newly branded Phase 7. Then the Slack screenshots. When he looked up, something had shifted in his eyes. "You're saying Damian Greaves is claiming this as his original work. He's preparing to, and Cassandra's backing him." He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "You know what this implies." "I do, but it's the truth. I built that project. It was buried, and now it's being funneled through an unapproved channel, marketed under a different name, and used to justify strategic realignment, all while I was shoved into a corner. He nodded slowly. Leave this with me. I'll need to validate a few things independently. You didn't see me receive this. We didn't have this conversation. I stood. Thank you for at least hearing me out. As I left his office, my hands were trembling. That moment felt like placing everything on a roulette wheel. My career, my reputation, maybe even my future. But I had nothing left to lose. For the next week, everything stayed eerily normal. Cassandra didn't speak to me. Damien hadn't arrived yet, delayed due to visa issues, according to the internal memo. I kept my head down, playing the part, but the silence was suffocating. Then, one afternoon, I was called into another meeting. Only this time, the invite came from Nathan. His office door was already open when I arrived. And this time, someone else was inside. Danielle Foster, lead counsel. Take a seat, Harper, Nathan said. My heart thundered. Danielle didn't waste time. We've conducted a preliminary review of the documents you provided, and we've found evidence supporting your claims. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Effective immediately, she continued, the project known as Phase 7 has been frozen. All related communications and budget activities are under audit. I blinked. Wait, really? Nathan nodded. You did the right thing bringing this forward. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. There's been a board inquiry into Cassandra's recent executive decisions. Your case just gave them fuel. I sat there, stunned. But it wasn't over. However, Danielle added, her tone cautious, this is delicate. If Cassandra feels cornered, she might retaliate. We'll protect you, but you need to be careful. Don't confront her. Don't talk about this with anyone else. Not even your old team. I nodded, a tightness growing in my chest. I thought outing the truth would feel like a victory, but it felt more like war. As I left the room, my phone buzzed. A calendar invite. One-on-one with Cassandra Rhodes. Today for PM. The subject line, let's clear the air. I stared at it for a long time, because now I knew she wasn't just coming to talk. She was coming to fight. When 4 p.m. rolled around, I walked to Cassandra's office with the calm of someone bracing for impact. My heart was pounding, but on the outside, I looked like any other employee heading into a routine meeting. The hallway seemed longer than usual, each step heavier. I passed co-workers who smiled politely, unaware of the storm quietly brewing around them. Her door was slightly ajar. I knocked once. Come in, she said, without looking up from her screen. The room was quiet, immaculate, not a pen out of place. She finally looked up, expression unreadable. Harper, sit. I obeyed, carefully setting my hands on my lap to hide the subtle tremble. She folded her hands, leaning back in her chair like a queen appraising a subject. I'll be honest, she began. I expected more professionalism from you. I didn't answer. You've made some serious allegations. Wild, unsubstantiated claims. Do you understand the damage that could do to this company? I do, I said evenly. But what I submitted to compliance wasn't wild, and it wasn't unsubstantiated. A flicker of irritation passed through her eyes. You're young, she said. Talented, yes, but naive. You don't understand how this level of business works. Ideas evolve. Proposals shift. Strategic vision requires real-world pivots. My jaw clenched. You mean taking someone else's work and giving it to someone with a better title? She leaned forward, her voice lowering. This isn't a meritocracy, Harper. It never was. It's about alliances, perception, power. If you were smart, you'd stop now. Before you make a permanent enemy. I should have been scared. And a part of me was. But another part, the part that had been chewed up and spit out, was done playing small. I'm not stopping, I said, my voice firmer now. And I'm not afraid of you. Her expression tightened. You should be. There it was, the mask slipping. I stood up. I used to think results spoke for themselves. I know better now, but I also know how to document everything. And you're not the only one with power in this building anymore. I walked out before she could reply. Back at my desk, I opened my inbox. One unread email from Nathan. Subject: Internal Review, Step 2. It was happening. They were escalating it to the board. And based on what he'd hinted earlier, there were more skeletons than just mine in Cassandra's closet. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that Cassandra had already started moving her chess pieces. That night, my work laptop locked me out mid-email. When I called IT, they were vague. Compliance flagged something. We're looking into it. The next morning, my badge didn't work. By noon, I was summoned to HR. Cassandra had filed a formal complaint against me for data theft. HR had me sit in a bland, windowless conference room. White walls, neutral carpet, a single-framed poster about workplace harmony that felt like a bad joke. A representative named Angela came in with a tight-lipped smile and a folder that looked heavier than it should have been. "We received a complaint this morning," she began, flipping the folder open like it was a routine Tuesday. "From Cassandra Rhodes, alleging that you accessed and distributed proprietary files outside of your role's authorization." I almost laughed. "That's not what happened." Angela nodded, as if she expected that. "We're conducting an internal investigation. During this time, your system access will remain suspended. You'll be placed on administrative leave pending review." My mouth went dry. She's retaliating. I brought evidence of unethical conduct to compliance, and now she's painting me as the problem. Angela didn't respond. She just made a note in her folder. It was all happening so fast. I stepped outside the building 30 minutes later with a box of my things, the weight of it nothing compared to the pressure crushing my chest. Employees avoided eye contact. One person whispered something as I passed, probably assuming I'd been caught embezzling or leaking confidential info. That was how it always went. Powerful people rewrote the story faster than the truth could keep up. I got into my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, and stared blankly through the windshield. I felt like I was sinking, like the entire world had turned upside down, and I was the only one trying to stand on solid ground. I called Nathan. They locked me out, claimed I stole files. There was a pause. "She's trying to force the narrative. It's desperate, Harper, and risky. If the board sees through it, I need you to hold tight. The board convenes in 48 hours. I've already sent them the files. They have your time-stamped documentation. But right now, you need to stay calm and stay quiet. Anything you say could be used against you." I hung up, my fingers still trembling. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how fast it had all unraveled, how one woman with enough power and the right connections could erase me in the span of a week. I was watching everything I'd built slip through my fingers. My work, my reputation, my future. But then I remembered something. The Slack logs. There was a conversation, one that hadn't made it into the original folder I'd given Nathan. A conversation where Cassandra directly responded to a suggestion from Damien that was lifted word for word from my original Phase 7 draft. She said, and I quote, "Let's repackage this under your leadership. Harper's approach was too aggressive." My breath caught in my throat. It was proof. I still had the screenshots. I grabbed my phone and started a message to Nathan. Found more. Direct Slack proof. Her words. "I'll send it tonight." And that was the moment I stopped feeling powerless. She wanted a war? Fine. I had receipts. Nathan called me the next morning, his voice lower than usual, tight with urgency. "We have it." "The Slack messages?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, and more. Cassandra's made a habit of this." That last part made me freeze. "She's done this before?" I asked. Nathan paused. That's what the audit is revealing. Buried projects reassigned to favored hires. Budget lines rerouted, off-record decisions with no executive oversight. Yours just happens to be the first someone had the nerve to document properly. My stomach turned. I wasn't her first, just her first mistake. I spent the day preparing, reading over the email trail, organizing everything I had into one clean timeline. I wasn't just trying to protect my name anymore. I wanted her entire illusion to crumble. That evening, I received the email. Subject: Special session of the board. Confidential attendance required. It was real. The next morning, I sat in a sleek, glass-paneled boardroom at Lanton's downtown headquarters. The executive board members sat in a semicircle around a long table, their expressions unreadable. Cassandra was already seated, perfectly composed, her black suit immaculate, a single pen resting diagonally across her notepad. I was asked to walk the board through the timeline of events. I started from the top. My proposal for the original project, the day I was removed, the creation of Phase 7, and the Slack message, Cassandra's own words, time-stamped. When I finished, the room was silent. Then Cassandra spoke. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, her tone sharp but controlled. "Ms. Lane is a talented former employee, but clearly inexperienced in high-level strategy. Projects evolve, and sometimes original ideas are reworked for better execution." One of the board members leaned forward. "Ms. Rhodes, the document history and Slack messages suggest this wasn't a reworking. It was a repackaging with intent to mislead." Another added, "And the fact that you filed a misconduct claim against Ms. Lane 2 days after her submission to compliance, it doesn't look like due process. It looks like retaliation." Cassandra's smile faltered for the first time. They weren't buying it. Nathan stood to present the final piece, a spreadsheet detailing 3 other former employees whose projects had quietly resurfaced under new names, attached to male executives brought in by Cassandra. Names, dates, dollar figures. And just like that, the air shifted. Cassandra was no longer in control of the room. She remained silent while the board excused her from the room for a private vote. I waited in the hallway, heart pounding, fingers cold despite the warmth of the sunlight through the windows. When they called me back in, her chair was empty, and they stood when I entered. "Ms. Lane," one of them said, "we'd like to formally apologize for the treatment you've received. The board has voted unanimously to place Cassandra Rhodes on administrative leave pending further investigation." I sat down slowly, unable to believe what I was hearing. "We also recognize your contribution to the company's growth and integrity. We'd like to offer you a formal reinstatement at an executive level, with autonomy over the strategic innovation division you helped build." I couldn't speak. All I could do was nod, the weight of weeks, months, finally breaking like a storm. I had fought, and I had won. I didn't sleep the night the board made their decision. Even after the email came confirming Cassandra's suspension and the offer for my new role, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling nothing. It wasn't triumph. Not yet. It was like watching a tidal wave crash and realizing somehow you're still standing, but everything around you is soaked in salt water and silence. The next morning, I opened the email again. Read it slowly twice. My name, Harper Lane, Vice President of Strategic Innovation. I ran my fingers over the words on the screen like they might disappear. The contract was attached. 6 figures. Full benefits. Direct report to the board. Freedom to build my team, my vision, my way. I should have felt proud. I should have screamed. Instead, I cried. Not big, dramatic sobs. Just quiet tears in the kitchen. Coffee going cold beside me as the weight of everything finally broke loose. The nights I stayed late and walked home alone. The silence in those meetings after they stripped me of my title. The fear of losing everything I'd built. The betrayal. The loneliness. All of it came rushing out. I signed the contract. The next week, I walked through the front doors of Lanton Tech again. Same building. But everything felt different. The receptionist gave me a tight, almost apologetic smile. In the elevator, people stared, some nodding, others avoiding eye contact. It was like being both invisible and radioactive at the same time. When the doors opened to the 20th floor, I stepped into what had been Cassandra's old domain. My new office was at the corner, floor-to-ceiling glass with a panoramic view of the skyline. Modern furniture, fresh paint, a brand-new nameplate on the door. Harper Lane, VP Strategic Innovation. I unpacked slowly. The last thing I took out of my box was the original project proposal, the one she buried, then tried to steal. I pinned it on the corkboard behind my desk, not out of revenge, but as a reminder. They almost erased me. Almost. By the end of the week, old teammates started dropping by. One by one. People who had worked late nights with me, built the product line from scratch, suffered when I was ousted. Some had been shuffled to other departments. Some had quietly left. A few asked if they could come back, help rebuild what we started. I said yes. We got a new name, a clean budget, and full autonomy. One afternoon, about 10 days in, I received an email. No subject line, just one sentence. I underestimated you. From Cassandra Rhodes. I stared at it for a full minute. No apology, no excuses, no acknowledgement of the chaos she caused. Just those 4 words. I didn't reply, but I archived it, maybe out of habit, maybe as a souvenir. Later that week, I was riding the elevator down when someone stepped in, a junior HR rep I barely remembered. She glanced at me, looked away, then back again. I saw what they did to you, she said softly. Last month, I watched it all happen. The whispers, the lies. I didn't think you'd come back, but you did, and I wanted you to know it mattered. My throat tightened. I nodded. Thank you. She smiled, eyes shining, and got off at the next floor. And that was when it hit me. This wasn't just about me. It was about every person who'd ever been told to shrink, to wait their turn, to be grateful for scraps while others climbed over them with stolen credit and louder voices. Coming back wasn't revenge. It was resistance. I didn't just survive Cassandra. I replaced her. And now I lead with something she never could manufacture. Trust. That's my legacy. Not because I burned it all down, but because I stayed, rebuilt, and proved I was never the problem.